Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making a 2D player controller inside Unity. It's going to be of the platformer style, and let's get right into the video. Alright, so I've got a really basic scene here, and I'm using the mossy assets I found on itch.io. If you want to use the same assets, link is in the description, as always. Cool, so we've got a little player here, and unfortunately he can't move, but we also have just tile map with a collider, and that's pretty much all we have. And some art, we've got some idle animation, some walk and jump animations for the player as well. Cool, so we're going to go down to the bottom of our project and create a folder and call this scripts. Then inside scripts, we're going to create a new C# script and call this player controller. Double click to open this up in Visual Studio. We're going to remove the start and update function and close this, and we're also going to remove the two system dependencies up top. So up top, we're going to create a public rigid body 2D, and we'll just call it RB. And then in the start method, we can just set this RB by getting the component of type rigid body 2D. There's no reason to make this public, so we're just going to set this private, and we're also going to make the class require the component type of rigid body 2D. We'll also make a public float called the speed and a public float for the jump height. We're also going to put these under a header of type preferences. I'm then going to make a public transform for the feet position, as this is what we're going to use to figure out whether or not we're grounded or not. Cool. Inside update, we are only going to be using the base input system because I really cannot be bothered to use the new quotation marks input system. We're going to create a float for the x and set it equal to input.getAxis of axis horizontal. We can then set rb.velocity is equal to a new vector 2, sorry. X, we're going to input the x on the x-axis, and for the y-axis we're going to input rb.velocity.y, and then we're just going to simply multiply the x by speed. Misspelled axis, it's lowercase x. We're going to drag and drop the script onto our player, scroll down, add a new empty for the player feet. Set the speed as 2 and the jump height also as 2 for now. Let's set the feet, so let's drag these down. That seems to be alright. And we also need to create a box collider for the player. Now my player is not perfectly centered, so we're going to have to set this ourselves. And let's click play to give this a go. And as you can see, we can move along the ground fine. And we can also rotate. So to stop the rotation, we go down under constraints, and we just freeze the rotation on the Z. Let's now go back into our script and create an if statement for the jumping. Go if input get key down key code dot space. Then we can just simply increase our rb.velocity plus equals to vector2 multiplied by our jump height. Now if we go back into Unity, as you can see, we are jumping. We might want to turn up our jump height to maybe something like 20. We'll see how much that does. That's quite a bit. Do 8. And as you can see, we're jumping pretty smoothly. Increase the movement speed a bit. Awesome. Now, as you can see, our player isn't actually rotating. It isn't, well, he's not rotating. He's not supposed to rotate. But as you can see, his sprite isn't flipping as we move around. I can toggle this through the sprite renderer. So let's quickly make a reference to the sprite renderer up top. Up here, we can make a private sprite renderer. Now, obviously, if your sprite renderer is not actually on the player, which also has the rigid body, then you might want to not have this private and just set it public and set it yourself. But for me, because it is on the same object, I can just set it as private. and I'll set render is equal to get component of type sprite renderer. And then now we can check if x is more than 0, then we can set renderer dot flip x is equal to false, else renderer dot flip x is equal to true. Now this is actually interesting because you depending on which way your sprite's facing, you might need to swap the order of false and true. Going back into Unity, we'll click play again, and as you can see, our character is now rotating. And now let's get some animation set up. Under preferences, let's create a public animator. And you know what? I'm actually going to make this private for my script because, again, the animator is most likely going to be on the exact same object. And let's also set anim is equal to get component of type animator. Cool, let's go quickly set up this animator. Under the player, I have a bunch of these sprites which I can use to animate. So under window, we're going to go window, animation, and I'm going to go into animation window. And you know what? I'm also going to open up the animator window because we'll need that later. Bringing the animation window out, I'm going to select the player and create an animator for it. And under player, I'm going to create an animation called idle, and then drag and drop all of these into here. And as you can see, it's going to play, I don't know, fairly fast. So we might want to spread these out a bit. Cool, I've set up all the animations so we can click on our player and it already has all of the animations in it. So as you can see, there's an arrow heading to the idle animation, and that means that this is the default animation which will play. And we have these other two animations which can also play. So what we're going to do is going to create a float called move, and we're also going to create a trigger called jump. Cool, so we're going to create a transition. So let's right click on idle, and let's go make transition, and we'll drag it to the walk. And let's also do the same from walk back to idle. And onto this transition, we're going to add a condition to it. And this condition is going to be move is greater than 0. And then it's also go backwards from the walk to idle, we're at a condition, and go move is less than 1. If you wanted it to just have a little bit of padding room, you can set it to maybe 0.9 and more than 0.1, just in case. And let's also go idle to jump, and jump back to idle. And this will simply be a jump trigger, and then backwards, we'll just leave has extra time on. And also we're going to remove has exit time for both of these, as we don't want them to wait for the animation to finish before going into the next animation. And we'll also do an animation transition between jump and walk. Cool, so now we'll go to basic animator setup. Let's just drag this down to make it a little bit more cleaner. We can actually activate these in the script. So inside our script, under update, we can update the animator's move value by going anim dot set float. And here we can input move as the name, and let's input x as the float we want to set. Likewise, over here we can set anim dot set, and here instead of float we'll go set trigger, because we're setting a trigger type value. We don't actually need to give it any value other than the name, and the name is jump. Let's go back to Unity. Let's just make sure everything is on the player that we need. We've got an animator with the player, and cool. So let's click play and give this a go. So as you can see, when we move, we can move around, and when we jump, it also has the jump animation. So what we're going to do for the jumping, instead of compounding the velocity, we're actually going to set the y value to the jump height instead. Otherwise, it will just keep compounding and will get higher. So I'm actually going to delete this code right here and set it actually equal to a new vector 2. And here we can go rb.velocity.x. And on the y value, we can set it to jump height. Let's go back to Unity and see how this works. And as you can see, I can't really compound the velocity no matter how much I jump. And that is something we need to fix now. What about infinite jumping? Right now I can jump all over the show and nothing seems to be stopping me from doing so. Let's fix that. So this is where the feet position come in handy. So what we can do is we can create a boolean up top called isGrounded. And under update at the very top, we can go isGrounded is equal to physics 2d.raycast. And here we can give it a 2D direction vector to be able to fire the ray in. So here we can go vector2 dot up, and we can just do the negative value of vector2 dot up, and let's give it the, oh crap, my bad, I forgot to set the position. We set it as the feet position dot position, and then negative vector2 dot up, and then we can give it the distance, and we probably only want it to fire 0.15 meters. And over here in the if statement where we set the velocity, we can simply just and is grounded is equal to true. Now inside of Unity, let's make sure the feet are in a good position. Hopefully. Actually, we're going to expose as grounded, as we want to see whether or not the value is actually being changed during the update method. Cool, let's click play. We are constantly being grounded. To stop the raycast from hitting our body, we're actually going to create a public, and here we're going to go layer mask, and this is going to be what is ground. So what does the ground, what does the script count the ground as being? And here we can simply just add what is ground. Inside Unity, we're going to create a new layer for the ground, and we're also going to create a new layer for the player. We're going to then set the player layer and also set the ground layer. Now, under the player, we're going to set the what is ground to being ground. So now when we click play, as ground is equal to true, and then when we jump, it's equal to false, meaning we cannot jump a second time. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed and it really helped you, don't forget to subscribe. It really helps me out. We're nowhere near the goal for the end of the year, which is 2 days away. Happy New Year if I don't make another video in 2 days. The yearly goal is 500. We're only going to reach 450, but that doesn't stop the dream from being big. Next year, 2K followers. Anyway, guys, I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you guys next time.